And joining us today, great to welcome back. Man has been with us a few times before, writes these great biographies, particularly of great actors and actresses. This one is really going to be an interesting one to talk about. It's called American Titan, Searching for John Wayne. We're joined today by New York Times bestselling author Marc Eliot from the great city of New York. And Marc, good to chat with you again. How have you been?
I've been fine. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, always fun to talk with you about your books. You do these great biographies of really show business and acting legends, and I guess nobody more of an icon than John Wayne.
That's right. I think you put him at the top of the list when it comes to iconic American actors.
This kind of coincides, just kind of reading the notes of it, I guess, the 75th anniversary of the film Stagecoach. That was kind of his breakout movie. I know he did a lot of movies before that, but that was his real breakout film as far as, I guess, a classic, right?
That's right. It was a John Ford film. It was made in 1939, which is widely regarded as the best year in Hollywood's history. You know, Gone with the Wind and so many others. And also, it's generally considered the first so-called adult Western. The reason being that most Westerns in the 30s, with a few exceptions, were B-movies. They had a banker who was corrupt, his beautiful, innocent daughter, and the fellow who likes her wrongly set up as the fall guy. And he falls in love with the girl, and at the end of the film, everything works out okay. They made hundreds of those, and John Wayne easily made 4 or 5 dozen of those type films. Stagecoach is something else. It's based on a Guy de Maupassant short story, which in itself was based on the travels, the 12th century book about the traveling across England. So it's got classical roots, and it's a character-driven film, not an action-driven film. And in that film, John Ford turned what would have been a lesser role into something special and unique, and that was the young American, innocent but tough hero who finds redemption by shooting the Indians, as they refer to them in the film, saving the girl, and getting long sought revenge for the men who killed his brother, and then riding off into the sunset with the reformed prostitute. So it's kind of a B-movie, but really more sophisticated. Same formula, better configuration. And it made Ford, it confirmed Ford's place as one of the top-level directors in Hollywood, and it showed that John Wayne could do more than just have a fist fight and ride off in the sunset alone.
I was going to say, how did he get that particular role? Since he did what you would call the serials back then and the B-movie westerns, was it almost accidental that he got the role, or did he campaign for it, or how did he get that role?
Well, he didn't campaign for it. He had been in a western in 1930 or 31 for Raoul Walsh called The Big Trail. Now, that was a film that was shot in 70 millimeter, and it was Walsh's hoped-for Birth of a Nation. In other words, the film that would redefine movies, redefine westerns, and make Walsh the top director in Hollywood. None of that happened. The Big Trail, which starred John Wayne, was the film actually where they changed his name from Marion Morrison to John Wayne.
Right.
Partly because John Payne was a big star, and they thought that John Wayne was small enough in letters that it would look bigger on the marquee. You know, that's Hollywood thinking. That is, whereas Marion Morrison would be very tiny on the same marquee. But that film, The Big Trail, was a huge flop, and because of it, Wayne spent 9 years in the B-movie wilderness, getting on in age. He was already past 30 40 when he made when he made Stagecoach, and it's very rare, even today in Hollywood, for anybody going from a character B actor to a star. Usually, you're a star right off the bat, or you never make it.
Right.
So with Wayne, he was a buddy of Ford's, John Ford, who liked to sail. They like to hang out at Catalina Island, 26 miles across the sea,
Sure.
that place, in Los Angeles, in California. And Ward Bond was another fellow who was in that group. Bond was a guy that Wayne played football with at USC. So they were all kind of buddies, big drinkers, big sailors, big fighters. They liked to brawl all the time. It was that kind of a group. And when Ford got the rights to the short story, based on Chaucer, that's what I was trying to say before.
Mm-hmm.
When he got the rights to the short story, the Maupassant story that had been in the Saturday Evening Post, he was having trouble casting this particular part because Ford liked to use one actor as a projection of himself. He did it originally with Harry Carey in the 20s. Then after Carey, Ford went through a number of actors. Victor McLaglen, who probably people remember from The Informer mostly, as the projection of Ford's self. Then he went with Henry Fonda for a while, The Grapes of Wrath, a very great movie of John Ford's, but he couldn't exactly find the actor whom he thought most closely resembled the personality of John Ford, at least as it could be shown on screen. And while they were out on a weekend cruise, Ford threw the script at Wayne and said, "Here, read this." And even though he knew he wanted Wayne, it was Ford's way to torture Wayne. He liked to make him suffer for whatever sadistic reasons Ford had. And he made Wayne wait until the end of the weekend. And he even said to Wayne, "Who do you think would be good for this role?" And Wayne, "Well, this guy might be good, and that guy might be good." And finally, at the end of the weekend, Ford said, "Okay, you've got the role." And of course, that was the role that it not only changed Wayne's career, but it changed his life.
And any man that doesn't want to cooperate, I'll make him wish he hadn't been born.
LaBeef, you get crossways of me and you'll think 1,000 of brick have fell on you.
Stealing sugar like a kid. Well, they whip kids to teach them better.
They what?
Laredo, Teeler, climb to that wagon wheel.
No.
Well, here's my word. Get the hell off my spread. Now. We'll all calm down.
Boss, he's just a little excited.
I know. I'm going to use good judgment. I haven't lost my temper in 40 years. But, Pilgrim, you caused a lot of trouble this morning. Might have got somebody killed. And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. The hell I won't.
Nobody.
And nobody run in here either, huh?
Chance?
I'm not going to hurt him. Get up. I don't hold jail against you. I hate a liar.
Get down off them horses. I don't favor looking up to the likes of you.
I'll count 3. And if you're not out of the house by then, I'll loose the dogs on you.
If you say 3, mister, you'll never hear the man count 10.
No hard feelings.
So Ford, in a sense, was just kind of making autobiographical films, just having these actors portray himself. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
That's right. If you look at all these films, Ford was from Irish ancestry. He was born on the East Coast of America. Wayne was of Irish ancestry.
Yeah.
So he was, and a lot of his films have an Irish ancestral base to them. There's a lot of immigrant, even in Stagecoach, people are migrating. They're going somewhere. They're starting new lives. That was something that Ford connected with. And with Wayne, he saw in Wayne a time very good-looking, strong, soft-spoken actor whom he thought was the idealization of him, and also had Irish roots.
Yeah. American Titan is the name of the book, Searching for John Wayne. We're talking with Marc Eliot. Of course, John Wayne, in addition to all the great Westerns, made so many great war films where he played, war heroes, Air Force, Army, Navy, I guess every branch of the service. But you talk about it in the book, he never served in the armed forces, did he?
He didn't, and he took a lot of flack for that later on. It wasn't entirely his fault. I mean, you can't say that anybody is blameless. You know, the guy who says, well, I was happily married, but this woman came along and I couldn't help myself. Wrong. I mean, that's the excuse. If you're an adult, you're an adult. With Wayne, he claimed sole support because he was married, and I think he had 3 or 4 children by then, and he was 34 years old when the draft came knocking, and he felt that was the top age in the beginning of the draft, in the beginning of World War II. At the end of World War II, they were taking 80 and under. It was who can we get? But in the beginning, they had that limit, and it was really the head of his studio, Republic Studios, who went to the armed forces and said, "Look, this guy is more important as a symbol of American heroism than as a soldier. You're not going to put him in the war in the front anyway. You're just going to use him for entertainment. So let me make movies with him." As Herb Yates was his name. And so there was a lot of backdoor dealing, the way Hollywood works, that combined to keep him out of the armed forces. I mean, he wasn't eager to go, that's for sure. But then again, who was? I mean, that's just whoever is. But today we have it all volunteer for us. So, that's a career. In the draft, it was an interruption of people's careers. And Ford, on the other hand, was actually in the CIA in the 30s, or what was the CIA in the 30s, and he was essentially a spy. And during the war, he made movies on location, very famous documentaries. One at the Battle of Midway, where he was wounded. One at D-Day, which he filmed part of, wounded. So he was the real thing, so to speak. And the one thing that came between Wayne and Ford was this service question. Ford tried to get Wayne into the special services several times, but for one reason or another, it didn't happen. Later on, after the war, when the blacklist came into force, very few people escaped that. Ford came under great suspicion because he had a falling out with Cecil B. DeMille, who was furiously in favor of blacklisting and anti-communism. And even Wayne there was a whiff about Wayne that he was soft on fascism because he didn't want to fight in the war, and soft on communism. That he didn't want to hard on communism. He didn't want to fight alongside soldiers fighting Nazis, fascism. So there were all kind of issues, and what Wayne did was that he became the head of the MPA, which was a very right-wing group that led the blacklist. They kind of targeted who could work and who couldn't work, and that took the taint off of him. And so he kind of grew into this image, this all-American image, and it stuck. I mean, to a point where he believed his own headlines. It was something that he grew into, but he certainly wasn't, in real life, give me a gun and let me get killed and be a hero for the other guys, right, like he was in Sands of Iwo Jima.
Well, son, since you haven't learned to respect your elders, It's time you learn to respect your betters. You can call me Father, you can call me Jacob, you can call me Jake, you can call me a dirty son of a bitch. But if you ever call me Daddy again, I'll finish this fight.
You goddamn mean dirty son of a bitch!
I wouldn't make it a habit calling me that, son.
You want that gun? Pick it up. I wish you would. There'll be no locks or bolts between us, Mary Kate, except those in your own mercenary little heart.
Guard, give me a rifle.
What is this?
You can't learn the easy way, you'll learn the hard way. I'd make a thrust.
What, without a scabbard?
You heard me.
You mean this way? Yeah, like this.
You get the idea?
You better marry that girl, Matt.
Yeah, I think I... When are you gonna stop telling people what to do?
All right, Buster, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm 30 years older than you are. Had my back broke once and my hip twice. And on my worst day, I could beat the hell out of you. If I can't teach you one way, I'll teach you another. But I'm gonna get the job done. Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
It's interesting because that image, like you said, of him being conservative, which I guess today that's almost, you don't hear any actors come out publicly. Very few say that today. There might be many out there, but he was pretty adamant about talking about that. I remember later in his life when he would talk about that. So, but that was kind of later on then. It wasn't from the beginning that he was that way.
And I think that that's one of the reasons I talk about this in length, at length in the book, that Hollywood didn't give him an Academy Award until way after his relevance.
True Grit, right?
True Grit, which was 1970, I think, 1970. Part of the reason was that Hollywood resented those who destroyed the system by taking the best talent out of it because of their politics. In the 50s, the best talent, with exceptions, of course, a lot of writers, a lot of directors, a lot of actors couldn't work here, so they went back to New York, to the theater. They went into television, which was at the time based in New York, and Europe. So there was a gutting that went on that had a double edge to it. And those who then took over Hollywood in the 60s who were much more liberal than Hollywood was in the 50s and 40s, pushed back against Wayne and his group. You see it with Reagan too. Reagan, who was heavily involved in the blacklist, never had a successful Hollywood career. He had a TV career as a host of that show, but that was tied to his connections with GE. So all of those men, the tide turns. You're on top of the heap one day, and the next day you're a victim of that heap. So Wayne's life is a beautifully constructed, as it happens, marvel of how his artistic side combined and sometimes was at odds with his creative side.
Yeah, the first Wayne movie I saw in a theater as a kid was True Grit, and then his last movie I remember seeing was The Shootist, right? Right before he passed away. He was actually ill when he made it, right? That was his final
That's
movie.
right, and he dies in that film. I mean, that film is a kind of a realization. I think he produced it, too. It's a realization, a kind of a memoir, so to speak, of a summation. It even starts with scenes from several of his more famous westerns. That is the prologue of the movie. A lot of people whose first experience of Wayne was True Grit or The Shootist or any of those films in the 70s really don't have an idea, a clear or accurate idea of who he was, what he was capable of, and how important he was to creating this image of the Western stoic hero. and that gets overlooked with the eye patch and the wave and the toupee and all that. You know, everybody gets old. But film, the curse and the grace of movies is that it can preserve early work so that later generations can see it as it happened.
Yeah, later in life, obviously, you get to see it on TV, which I did, but that was the first one actually in a theater that you saw with it. And that was a great performance, too, but you're right.
Yeah.
You go back to the films of the 40s and 50s and even early 60s. I mean, he played cops. I guess the Maureen O'Hara, worked with her several times. Those are great movies, right? Where he played more of a regular guy. So I guess he was underrated as an actor. I guess people kind of think he played himself all the time, but it couldn't have been just himself. He had to have some talent, right?
Oh, he had a great film talent.
Yeah.
You know, when the method actors came along later on in his career, like the Montgomery Clift, who actually made a movie with, Red River, a Howard Hawks film, where Clift is the rebellious adopted son of John Wayne's character, Dunstan. And that film is interesting from a critical viewpoint because it's kind of a struggle between the old style of acting that was on its way out, represented with Wayne, and the new up-and-comers represented by Clift. And you see as Clift succeeds, and then Brando, and then Dean, they set the table for the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you know, for the Pacinos, for the De Niros, for the Dustin Hoffmans. And Wayne, it becomes a kind of a reactionary throwback in the eyes of younger people. And that's why a book like this is just as important for people who don't know him as for people who do know him, because he had a spectacular career in Hollywood, and many of his films, like The Searchers. The Searchers, I think, is not only one of the best films of the 50s, I think it's one of the best films ever made. Yeah. And a lot of it is because of the chemistry between Ford and Wayne, and you can see every inch of it on screen.
How was his personal life? I know you talk about he's married 3 times. And you sort of heard over the years that maybe a little bit of estrangement with his kids. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but from your research, happy personally or personal life, or what was that like?
Well, he wasn't the kind of guy. He thought he was, but he wasn't the kind of guy who wanted to be home at 6 o'clock and honey, what's for dinner? He wanted to be that. That was his dream. But in real life, he wasn't really interested in that. He loved to go hunting, sailing, hang out with the boys, and interestingly enough, for a guy who people think was so rah-rah and supremist and all of that, he married 3 Latin women. This is very interesting. I mean, it would take a psychiatrist greater than me to try to really peel away all the layers of what that means. But it means something. And because it means something, it's worth talking about, thinking about, and writing about. I mean, there's a sense that women are less equal in his life than men. And you can make a case for John Ford being more important and closer to Wayne than any of his wives ever were. Yeah. I mean, his wives were kind of, to use a cliche, barefoot and pregnant all the time, and that's the way he liked them. It kept them out of his hair. It kept the legacy going in a manner of speaking, and it also freed him to be able to live the life that he wanted to live. These were very tolerant women. All of them put up with him long after you would think women would have put up with a guy who lived like Wayne. I mean, he while he was married, in his first marriage, he fell completely, hopelessly, and drastically in love with Marlene Dietrich, who was his co-star in the movie. And really, he bowed at her feet. And Dietrich, that was her thing. She did it to her first director who discovered her, Joseph von Sternberg. You see that story in The Blue Angel, where her first big German-American movie.
Yeah.
That's who she was with men. She did it to Jimmy Stewart when she worked with him in Destry Rides Again. She did it to Eric Maria Remarque, who was a writer that she was actually married to for a while. She did it to Jean Gabin, the French actor. Well, that was her thing. And, Dietrich's way of life was the bigger they are, the harder they fall for me. and that's kind of, and he was a prime target for that. He liked women who would answer to him. But when it came to Dietrich, he turned into his father, who was very much controlled by the mother.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, psychology floating around there. My job, I think, is to lay it out there and let everybody else go into the analysis. I think it's important to know it.
Those were the days.
Those were the days, yeah.
There's so many great stories in the book. We just touched on a few. American Titan, Searching for John Wayne is the name of the book, and we've been talking with Marc Eliot tonight. Mark, always great to have a chance to chat with you. A great job with this book. Do you have a particular website you want to give out? I know it just came out, available everywhere, but do you have a website?
Yeah, everybody can go to my website, marceliot.net. MarcEliot.net. It's on Amazon. It's in all the big box stores, and I'll be on the corner selling them tonight if anybody wants to come by.
Well, Mark, it's always, again, great to chat with you. I know you probably got another one in the works, and you'll let us know when that is, when the time comes, and we'll definitely have you back on then. But congratulations on this book, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, and so glad to be on tonight.
The winner is John Wayne in True Grit.
If I'd have known that, I'd have put that patch on 35 years earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm no stranger to this podium. I've come up here and picked up these beautiful golden men before, but always for friends. One night I picked up two, one for Admiral John Ford, one for our beloved Gary Cooper. I was very clever and witty that night, the envy of even Bob Hope. But tonight I don't feel very clever, very witty. I feel very grateful, very humble. And oh, thanks to many, many people. I want to thank the members of the Academy. To all you people who are watching on television, thank you for taking such a warm interest in our glorious industry. Good night.